Hello and welcome to episode 1 of our Pray for Mini project. In this episode, we are going to talk about coilovers. I have to admit that this project did not exactly start off on the right foot. You see, last week we had the first work session with big goals, and as that always happens with big goals, it took us way more time than we expected to get things done. Now, before we talk about the actual upgrades, let's take a look at why a good suspension is important on a track car. If you're interested in cars, which I'm assuming you are, you've probably already stumbled across people trying to tweak their cars by installing coilovers and then lowering their car. But does that help cars' performance, and why? You see, coilovers are suspension devices. Their two main components are the damper and the spring. They both have their own job, and the job of a spring is to carry the car's weight and provide load on the tires. In theory, we could drive a car only on springs, but that would mean the car would just be bouncing around all over the place and it would be pretty much undrivable. Here's where the dampers come in. The dampers do just that. They dampen the movement that the spring produces. So while the spring controls the car height and absorbs bumps, the dampers actually dampen those movements, so the car is much more stable on the road. Okay, but you might be asking, how does this affect performance and my lap times? Well, first of all, if a car is lower, that means the center of gravity is much lower to the ground, and it can naturally move around much easier than if the center of gravity would be higher. If the car can move around easier, that means the cornering also improves. Now on to the dampers. The dampers can be non-adjustable, which is most common on normal street cars, but they can also be adjustable. Depending on the damper, we can adjust the car's height, which is done by compressing the spring, or we can adjust the stiffness of the damper. For stiffness, we can have either adjustable rebound or compression, which can also be referred as bump. Some mid-level coilovers have these two settings combined into one adjustable knob you can tweak, and that is exactly how our Meister R coilovers are adjusted. For higher end dampers, you can not only adjust rebound and compression separately, but you can also adjust low speed and high speed compression and or rebound. That's where the term 2, 3 or 4-way adjustable coilovers comes from. Now for a quick crash course onto these two principles. When you hit a curb on the circuit or when you turn into a corner, your suspension compresses. When you drive off a curb or when you start unwinding your steering wheel out of a corner, your suspension rebounds. The stiffer the compression, the longer it will take your car to lean into corners, and the stiffer the rebound, the longer it will take your wheel to drop once the compression ends. In practice, that means that if you have hard rebound, your wheel might not get enough traction off curbs, or you might have issues coming out of corners because the pressure on your outer wheels will not be increased fast enough, which means loss of traction. If you have hard compression, your car might not lean into corners as much, which means the weight transfer will not be as efficient as it can be. Okay, so this was a basic explanation of how coilovers work. As I've briefly mentioned before, we will be installing the adjustable Meister R Zeta CRD Plus coilovers. They have 32 levels of combined compression and rebound stages. This means that if you set it to hard or soft, both your compression and rebound will have the same level of stiffness. Now, this is obviously not optimal because you want to have a bit more adjustability, but we think it's going to be a great bang for the buck. If that's true, you'll just have to stay tuned to our future episodes and see how many seconds it will help us shave from our lap times. Okay, now back to our actual project. Our initial plan last week was to install the Meister R coilovers, Powerflex bushes, adjustable rear control arms, Recaro seats, intercooler, oil cooler, and new brake pads. I know it sounds like a lot of stuff. After a few hours, it was clear to us that this is not going to happen, and we settled on a new goal on just finishing with the suspension and replacing the brake pads and the intercooler. At the end of the day, we had our suspension installed and we decided to take the Mini out for a short test drive just to get a feel for the suspension, even though we still needed to do the wheel alignment. And yeah, the car only did a few meters before we heard a loud bang and a rattling noise that just wasn't pleasant, and this happened. So you might be asking, why am I walking on the street without the Mini? And the answer is this. And if you are wondering what that is, let me tell you, that is the transmission fluid. And why is it transmission fluid in the middle of the road? Well, it's because we fucked up the gearbox. Yes, it has a massive hole in it and we smashed the axle, and yeah, it's not working. So what can I say? Pray for Mini. We are still not sure how this happened, because only lowering the car should not have such drastic effects on the drive shafts. Anyway, we already have a gearbox and drive shafts on the way, and in the meantime we'll try and finish up the things we had originally planned for. Alright folks, that's it for the first episode. Thanks for tuning in and thanks for all your prayers. The Mini is definitely going to need them for a fast recovery. If you like all the nonsense we're doing here, don't forget to like the video, share it with your petrol head friends, and subscribe to the channel for more Mini goodies.